Hello, demons, fae, and those in between. This is Dizzy, and I will be continuing A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin. This will be chapters 12 and 13. I'm really excited. I actually am recording this the day after the last episode, so I'm really excited to get this finished and sent out to you guys, since I have been missing a few days. So yeah, let's get started. Gentle fingers slid through Danny's feathers. Danny used the soft surface that he was tucked against to muffle a sleepy, hysterical chuckle at the thought. Feathers. Wings. Danny had really been hoping that he wouldn't have wings when he woke, but when had he ever been so lucky? Well, other than only half dying. The fingers stilled. Danny? As he very much did not want to be awake, Danny replied with a disgruntled grumble. A low chuckle answered him back. The fingers picked back up their gentle carding. As Danny's mind continued to come online, he realized that the fingers were fixing and straightening the mused feathers. It actually felt rather nice. Each little corrected placement made something in Danny uncoil. So, Danny let himself continue to drift for a little longer. Let his wings be cared for. The soft, unflinching touch helped to make the new limbs feel less unnatural, even if the weight of them were still heavy on his back. Unfortunately, the more aware of the touch Danny became, the more he woke. The more he woke, the more questions he had. Eventually he gave in to trying to sit up. The hand moved from fixing feathers to bracing Danny between the wings. Be careful. You might be a little disoriented. It's been quite a day. Bruce. Apparently, he had fallen asleep on top of Bruce. Danny hadn't needed to embarrass himself any more that day, and yet here he was, falling asleep on Bruce Wayne after a panic attack. Danny pressed the palms of his hand against his eyes and hoped he wasn't blushing too horribly. I am so sorry. For what? Bruce asked. He sounded genuinely confused. Falling asleep on you, apparently. And really, on Bruce, it seemed. Even sitting up, Danny was still practically in the other man's lap. Worse, Danny really just wanted to curl back up and sleep some more. Oh, Bruce chuckled. With how large a family I have, that's nothing to worry about. I've been very used to being a pillow for others. Besides, you clearly needed the rest, and after today, it's more than understandable that you'd want someone close. That was fair enough, Danny supposed. With a deep breath, Danny lowered his hands from his face to cross over his bare chest. He offered Bruce an apologetic little smile. Still nothing, Bruce said, and waved the matter aside. Now, Jason and Dick are back from your place. They weren't able to find any clothing that would work around your wings there. Danny rubbed at the side of his neck. They wouldn't. It hasn't been long enough to deal with that, even if I knew where to start. Luckily for you, we have an Alfred, Bruce said. With a bracing hand kept on Danny, Bruce leaned forward and grabbed something fabric from off of the coffee table. He worked his magic and modified this into something that should work around your wings. Really? Danny took what looked like just a well-worn Gotham Knight sweatshirt and turned it over in his hands. Oh, Alfred really had worked his magic. Danny ran his fingers over the stitched splits in the fabric and the snaps under them. Wow, he just went and made this? Alfred is a man of many skills, and not to be underestimated, Bruce said with a chuckle. I'm sure that he'll ask you if it needs any changes before he makes any other versions. Other versions? Something to sleep in, and another shirt at least, Bruce said, as if that clarified much of anything. We aren't sure how long the wings will last, and you should be comfortable here. I appreciate it so much, Danny said, as he quickly pulled on the sweater. But Alfred doesn't need to put all that effort into this for me. You really can't stop him. The comfort of people in this manner are paramount to him, and now he has something in his mind to improve your comfort, Bruce said. He will think that this is the least he can do. Danny blinked at that. I'm a little scared of what he thinks the most he can do is, then. You should be. He's a force of nature. If you'll turn, I'll do up the snaps for you, Bruce said. Danny gratefully twisted, glad that he turned so that Bruce didn't see his wince. I imagine that your back must be sore from this, Bruce said, ruining Danny's hope that he hid his pain. I'll find where one of the heating pads are for you to use later. It's fine, Danny said quickly. I don't want to... Danny, Bruce spoke over him. His hands gently smoothed down the fabric under Danny's wings. You saved my family today. Even beyond that, my children seem to have become quite fond of you. You aren't a bother. While you are here to have the help, let us take care of you a little. Please? Danny chewed on his lip. If nothing else, it'll help the children worry less. There really was no refusing that, was there? Only so people don't worry, Danny said. And I do mean people. Don't think that you're hiding your worry. Luckily, Bruce chuckled at that. Hiding my worry is something I'm not very good at. And yes, I am a warrior. My children have told me that enough times that I accept the title. Well, as long as you know, Danny said it as he stood. He could feel the heat rising in his cheeks. Between the conversation and Bruce's hands against his back, Danny needed to take a moment to just breathe. The wings shifted with the deep breath, rising and falling into a relaxed fan. I know that you have understandable issues with the wings, Bruce said softly from behind Danny, but they really are quite stunning. Even the back of Danny's neck felt hot now. He rubbed at it as he cleared his throat. Thank you. Bruce gave a soft hum. He must have stood too, because a moment later a hand brushed over Danny's wings, and then Bruce was beside him. Let's go track down some of my children, so that we can make sure they brought everything you need. Right, yeah. Danny cleared his throat. That sounds like a good idea. Lead the way. So, what did you find out? Tim asked as he spun around. He was at the computer, of course, and looked most of the way to villainy with how he was backlit by the large screens. Dick loved his little brother, but villainy really wouldn't be the most surprising outcome for Tim. What makes you think we found anything? Jason answered, just to be impertinent. Tim rolled his eyes. You wouldn't have called us all down to the cave if you didn't have anything, Jason scoffed. You underestimate how willing I am to waste your time. Boys, Cass said calmly, ending the growing argument with just a word. Is Duke still out on patrol? Dick asked as a distraction. Tim glanced over his shoulder and at the screen. He's on his way back. He'll be here in 15. Best not to wait, Dick decided. If Danny woke up, they would all have to be around upstairs. They'd be sure to fill Duke in on anything he missed. Okay, well, first of all, Danny was not lying. He has a lot of plants. Dick managed to turn on the watering system. We're all very proud of him, Jason said flatly. The siblings all golf clap, which Dick took a dramatic bow to. Thank you. Otherwise, a pretty normal apartment. Comfortable, a little nerdy, but not fussy. Jason nodded. There's a hero, not sure if it's someone real or fictional, that we saw a few times. Someone called Phantom. Obligingly, Dick sent the photo of the mug from the bathroom up onto the screens. Tim spun back to the computer and started searching. There were also a lot of medication in his cabinet, vitamins and several prescriptions also. Some of them had weird labels. Damn, Dick, you couldn't have gotten a clearer photo? Tim asked as he squinted at the new set of images. As much as I hate to defend Dick, Jason said, as he added photos of his own to the screen, that is a clear photo. Danny was writing in the same language along with English in a bedside notebook of his. Damien looked from the photos to Tim with a judgmental brow raised. "Are you in need of glasses, Drake?" Tim flicked him off, which Dick considered telling Tim off for. Damien had enough bad habits, but he was actually curious about this. "No, the text looks glitched out." "No," Damien said, slowly and with a scowl. "It is clear. Odd, but clear." "Cass?" Dick asked. She moved a step closer to the television, head tilted. There was a long, quiet moment before she lifted her hand and gave a so-so motion. Tim looked from her to Damien to the screens. "Dick?" "So, that's the thing. It looks wrong to me, too. If I look at it too long, it gives me a headache. Jason can read it, though." Jason snorted. "That's taking it a bit far. I feel like I should be able to read it. I can get a word here or there, maybe." "Like it whispers," Damien said, the quiet words oddly poetic for the youngest of them. "Yeah, like it whispers," Jason agreed, just as softly. "Right. Okay. Freaky language that only some of us can even clearly see, much less read. Those of us who can read it have spent a lot of time in or around the League," Tim said. "How concerned do we need to be about this? Do we need to be concerned about this? I feel like we need to be concerned about this." None of them had an easy answer for Tim. All of them were grateful for the roar of Duke's bike interrupting the conversation as he pulled into the cave. "What are you all looking so grim about?" Duke asked. He yanked his helmet off and took a deep breath, like he hadn't been able to breathe in hours. It was a feeling they all got. Even a good patrol was draining, and Duke had been actively on follow-up over what had gone down today with the Mad Hatter. Dick tossed a towel Duke's way and went to grab a jink for the other from the food-safe fridge. "Stuff from Danny's place? Take a look at the screen," Jason said. "Danny? I thought we all liked the guy," Duke said, accepting the drink with a grateful thank you. He drained half of it on his way to the screens. "Shit, that's a lot of meds." "Take a closer look," Jason said, though not unkindly. Duke stepped closer to the screen and went alarmingly still. Dick resisted the instinctual urge to reach out and grab him. "Duke?" Duke gave him an answering hum and turned his head just slightly towards Dick. His eyes never left the screen. Dick wasn't sure if Duke had really heard him. It was Jason who ended up listening to the instinct that had started buzzing at the back of Dick's skull. He stepped between Duke and the screen, blocking their newest brother's view. Duke sucked in a sharp, startled breath. "What?" "Hey, come on, have a seat," Jason said, and guided Duke backwards into one of the chairs at the table. Tim swiftly cleared the photos from the screen. Duke shook his head. "Sorry, man, I don't know what... that... What did those look like to all of you?" "Green-tinted pill bottles with different labels of medication in them," Tim replied calmly. "Dick and I can't read what's printed on them. Damien, Jason, and maybe Cass can a little, which might be League writing of some sort." Dick leaned against the table. "What did you see, Duke?" "Green-tinted pill bottles with something in them. Like, whatever it was, my powers were weird about it. I'd have to see them in person to know anything about why. I guess they were... I don't know. Whatever that stuff was, I don't think it's League, because I don't think it's human. I don't think it's earthly." "Well, fuck," Dick said with a sigh. He wasn't sure if that was better or worse. That was the end of chapter 12, and we're going to go on to chapter 13. "Well, there's a horde of my children," Bruce said, glanced to Steph, and added, "and otherwise." "Hi, Bee," Steph said, with a large smile that was just a little too much tooth. "And hi, Danny." "Hello, Stephanie," Danny said. His wings were pulled tight against his back, as if he could hide them from view. He couldn't. "Sorry, Bee," Dick chirped, with his most innocent smile. "We were in the middle of a Mario Kart battle, and you know how those can get." "At least tell me nothing is broken," Bruce said, sounding entirely resigned about it all. Nothing is broken. Yet. Well, good enough, I suppose, Bruce said. Though everyone had better sit, though, before Alfred comes in and fusses. Too late, Master Bruce, Alfred drawled as he came into the room with a serving tray in hand. They all, appropriately, scrambled for seats. What with Danny being there, the normal seating, not that it stayed exactly the same, was thrown into complete disarray. Mostly this was because Damien insisted on sitting next to Danny while Cass took the seat across from him and Tim was next to her. Dick tried to stuff back his smile, but Jason caught it and rolled his eyes at his brother. Still, it was sort of nice, in a weird way, like when big cats have a service dog, to see Damien having someone out of the family that he felt the need to look over and protect. The suddenness of it all was what bothered Jason. Cass meets the guy, and he's invited to the ballet. Tim sleeps in Danny's office. Damien wants to protect him. Even Bruce was at ease earlier when Danny was sleeping on him. It was just like Danny belonged there, in with the rest of their family. Jason didn't trust it. He especially didn't trust it because it seemed to be having an effect on him, too. He hadn't snooped nearly as much as he could have in Danny's apartment. Hell, the revelations down in the cave that they had just had didn't bother him as much as they should have. Jason looked across the table to Duke, who was squinting a little at Danny. Jason kicked Duke lightly under the table and tilted his head in question. Duke rolled his eyes, but pulled out his phone and sent, "He's got, like, an aura about him." Jason frowned and typed back. "Did he at the ballet?" Duke gave a little shrug, but shook his head. Well, that was very interesting. Jason wished that Duke had seen Danny when he was in full bird form, so they could have a full comparison, but this was something at least. Danny had admitted that he was a meta, but was he a meta like Wally was, or more like Duke, or even Corey? The odd language certainly pointed more towards Duke or Corey. Dick nudged Jason with his pointy elbow. When Jason glared at him, Dick looked pointedly down at Jason's plate and back up. "Eat," he mouthed. Jason rolled his eyes, but dug into the meal. It was a vegetarian pasta of some sort. Salad and garlic bread were also on the table. Basically a nice carb-heavy meal to have after a long, hard day. Jason had to wonder if Alfred would even let any of them out tonight. None of the kids, for sure. Tim, Damien, and Steph were all certain to be grounded. Dick, Jason, and Cass could probably make a good argument to go out and get started on this Mad Hatter thing, but Cass might prefer to stay close. Jason couldn't really blame her for that if she did. She deserved to get to be close to her family. Jason caught Dick's gaze again, raising a curious brow with a little head motion towards the cave, approximately. Dick nodded, a seriousness in his eyes. Okay, I guess they had a plan. Bruce found them as they were suiting up. He leaned against the back computer and watched as Dick and Jason bickered and hindered each other actually being able to get dressed for patrol. It was good to see them be able to be brothers like that again. Therapy with Harley had really been helping Jason. Bruce knew that Dick was seeing someone, even if he hadn't pried into who. Bruce didn't think it was fair to, when it had taken him so long to start seeing help himself. It was something he wished he'd done far earlier, had pushed for all of them to do earlier. "What are you brooding about over there, old man?" Jason called out. He'd finally wrestled his gloves back from Dick and was pulling them on. "I can just be somewhere without brooding," Bruce said. Jason's snort said how much he believed in that. Bruce sighed. "I was thinking how proud I am of both of you for making good on the therapy that you've been doing." There was a long silence before Jason muddled "sap" and ducked his head. Dick just grinned, a faint blush on his cheeks. As old as the two were, they were still his kids. "If I stay in tonight, will you two be fine out there?" "Doubting us?" Jason asked. His voice changed partway through as he put on the mask and the modulation kicked in. "Never," Bruce said, which seemed to make Jason freeze again. "Just asking if you want me out there as backup." Stay with the others, Dick said, with a little shake of his head. I know they've brushed it off, but Damie and Tim have still been through a rough day. And Danny, too. You should be around if anyone has issues in the night. Let us go out and start investigating, Hood answered. Even with the mask, there was a softness to his voice. We've got this. Bruce nodded. He knew they did. I'll keep a comm if you need me. Sure. Just make sure to get some rest, old man, Jason said, and headed towards the bikes. Nightwing followed with a little wave. Bruce stayed in the cave until they were gone, and then grabbed a communicator to slip into his ear, just in case. Danny's first thought when he woke up in the morning was how rested he was. It was almost shocking. He'd been so exhausted for the past few weeks that to feel rested was a relief that almost made him cry. Danny's second thought was about his wings, which he still seemed to have. That was a pretty quick revelation caused by the fact that he was asleep on his stomach. The wings pulled at the sheets as he stretched lazily. At least they hurt much less than yesterday. He was careful as he sat up. A cumbersome affair with the wings. It basically resulted in Danny getting his legs off the side of the large bed and simply standing up backwards, but at least it did result in him standing. Grateful for Alfred's thoroughness with the supplies, Danny brushed his teeth before taking an awkward shower. He kept to the shower wand only and tried to keep as much water off his wings as possible. Despite the care, he still felt, and looked, like a rain-ruffled bird after he had dressed in the modified sweater and a pair of his normal pants. He did what he could to at least tame his hair, swallowed his morning medication, and left the sanctuary of his borrowed room. Master Danny, impeccable timing, Alfred said when Danny came across him in what Danny thought was the foyer. Breakfast will be served in half an hour in the kitchen. Would you like some coffee or tea to start your day? Coffee would be great, if it's not any trouble, Danny said with a bashful smile. He still wasn't quite sure how to handle Alfred's uncanny ability to show up and offer his service. A standard request of coffee is hardly trouble, Alfred said, in such a way that Danny felt bad for trying to be polite. He didn't think that his Midwest manners were going to get him very far in this house. Manner. Still trying to puzzle out how his life got him into things like this. Danny followed Alfred to the kitchen. Bruce was already there, looking still half asleep as he sipped on his own mug of coffee. For the moment, the table was children-free. Cream or sugar? Alfred asked as he headed towards the counter. Cream, please, and a little sugar, Danny said. He turned to Bruce and gave a little smile. Morning, Bruce. Good morning, Danny, Bruce said, his voice a low, sleepy rumble. Danny did his best to fight the blush that the tone caused. Would you like help drying off your wings? So much for not blushing. Yeah, that would be really nice. I tried to do what I could, but... Bruce chuckled softly. Completely understandable. It's a very awkward angle to try and manage. He set down his mug and stood. Fortunately for you, Damien is quite the animal buff, and I was sent some very extensive articles on caring for wings. Oh, gods, Danny said. The words were muffled by the way he buried his burning face into his hands. Damien simply wants the best for you, Bruce pointed out. Sure, but still, Danny said. He rubbed at his face as he let himself lean his head back and stare up at the ceiling for a moment. I'm not a pet. Danny saw Bruce come over out of the corner of his eye, towel in hand, and rolled his head a little to glance at him. He thought it was progress that he didn't flinch when Bruce reached out, clearly telegraphing his motion, to run a hand over Danny's wing. No one thinks you're a pet, Danny, Bruce said, with so much sincerity in his eyes that Danny had to look away. Knowing how to take care of your wings is the same as making sure that Damien has easy access to vegetarian meals or that the computers in the mirror have a dyslexic-friendly font installed for Dick, or that Barbara can easily get around in her wheelchair. Your wings, even if only a sometimes thing, are a part of you, and for better or worse, my family and I seem rather intent to see you well. Danny rubbed the back of his neck as he glanced at Bruce. Part of it may be that I'm not exactly used to that sort of attention. I mean, Lucius tries to make me take care of myself, as well as some coworkers, but in Gotham that sort of feels like new rogue prevention, Danny joked. Luckily, Bruce chuckled at that. I'm sorry that we're so overwhelming. No, don't be. Excuse the bird analogy, it's just a very full nest, isn't it? It feels cozy. It's just something different to try and wrap my head around, Danny explained. And I won't pretend that I don't still have issues, as much as it's something I've worked really hard on personally and in therapy. Dying at 14 leaves a person with some issues. Not to mention being a superhero, staying half dead, dying for a second time, and all of the other things that went on during his high school years. Yes, I would imagine so, Bruce said, after a pause. His voice was soft and sad. Bruce? Sorry, Bruce said. When Jason was 15, we thought he had died. He ended up out of reach and with extensive brain trauma and memory loss. I know how much it affected him. I'm sorry you had to go through something at that age also. Danny squeezed one of Bruce's hands, where it was clasped tightly around the towel. He's here now. He's alive and he seems happy. He has a boyfriend and everything. I'm not saying it doesn't still pull at him, but it hasn't dragged him to the bottom. At least not anymore. Bruce's smile was a somber, soft thing. Thank you. And you're here too. Danny blinked at that. Bruce wasn't wrong. He didn't know almost any of the story, but he wasn't wrong. Wings and all, Danny was still alive. He smiled back softly. Yeah, I am. Bruce cleared his throat and carded his fingers through Danny's wing after the towel. If your wings stay around, we'll have to look into producing an artificial waterproofing substance for them. I can't imagine that it would do you any good to be walking around Gotham with damp wings. The thought made Danny want to hunch in on himself. I don't really want to walk around Gotham with wings at all. If they stay here, you can't hide them away from the world, Bruce said. Danny sighed and rubbed at his face. I'd like to say I can, but I think that might turn into an argument, and I don't really have the energy for that today. Maybe a little bit of an argument, but only for your own sake, Bruce said. I don't want you to feel like you have to hide away like that because of who you are. It was more what he was, wasn't it? But Danny felt that might end up in a bit of an argument also, and maybe it was wrong. Even if he was no longer Phantom as a hero, Phantom was still a part of his identity. Eventually, it would be his only identity. Sadly, not everyone is as accepting of oddities as you and your family, even if things are better now with the more public nature of metas. I know that not everywhere is there yet, but I would hope that at least WE is somewhere accepting. Bruce's frown was obvious in his voice. If it isn't, then that's something I'll have to work on. I'm sure you could just sick Lucius on them. He's not the type to put up with it either. He really isn't, or any sort of intolerance like that. If it comes to you going to work with your wings out, promise you will at least talk to one of us if someone is any sort of an issue. At that point, it isn't just about you. It's not the sort of person we want at WE, Bruce said. Danny gave a little hum. Danny? I promise, Danny said with a little wave of his hand. I know there are a lot of people who work to make WE a good place, and I wouldn't do anything to sabotage that. As embarrassing as it would be, I'm old enough I can deal with taking the hit if it makes things safer for somebody else. You are hardly old, Danny. Old enough, though, and secure enough in my job there. If Lucius hasn't fired me yet, I'm pretty sure I'm good, Danny replied with a chuckle. Besides, you have to know what I mean. There's a point where a lot of little things that used to matter don't anymore. No, I know. I think that most of that was less about age and more about my horde of children. It's not even 10 and you're already besmirching our good name? Good morning, Tim, Bruce said. Good morning, Tim, Danny echoed. And no besmirching is going on right now. We're just lamenting being old.
Oh yeah, that was shock,
Tim said around a wide yawn. Danny didn't try to hide his laugh. It may have been quite a number of years since he was one himself, but teenagers would always be teenagers. I'd apologize for him, Bruce said as he folded the towel he had been using. But, well... Kids, Danny finished with a little shrug. Don't worry, you have a good flock. Are we doing bird puns now? Duke asked as he came into the kitchen with Damien on his heels and Cass to his side. Someone will have to tell Dick. Or perhaps we preserve our sanity and not mention it to Grayson, Damien said. Good morning, Dr. Fenton. I trust you rested well? Just Danny is fine, Damien. And I did, yes. I actually feel a lot better today than I have recently. Damien gave a nod. Then you must stay for a few days so that you can recover fully. Damien. He is not wrong, Cass said. She dropped a kiss to the top of Danny's head and then Bruce's cheek as she passed. They really aren't, Bruce agreed after a beat. And you're perfectly welcome here. Danny resisted the urge to chew on his lip. He had rested incredibly well, and it would let him keep an eye on Tim and Damien. There was also just something nice about sitting there at a table as it filled up with other people and their chatter. Just a few days, Danny agreed. Just a few days was enough. It would have to be. This concludes our reading of A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin, chapters 12 and 13. I absolutely love these two chapters. Something I love, first of all, I love it when crossovers like this include Dick, Steph, Tim, Cass, all of those. I feel like the Danny Phantom fandom is pretty good about including the entire Bat fam, but I just love it so much. Plus, I love Duke's powers. I'm so sorry. I love Duke's powers and how they are incorporated into that because canonically, Danny does have a bit of a aura/glow to him in the show, so Duke's powers kind of fit with that, and I just think that that's really cool to be included. I also think it's really cool how they portrayed the ghost script that is going on, and it's just really cool. It's also kind of embarrassing to read the scenes with Danny and Bruce being a little bit more intimate. It's so cute, and I love it so much, but it feels like I'm reading about my parents because they're both adults who are very clearly parents. So it's a little awkward, but it's so cute, so it makes this worth it. But yeah, I'll stop ranting now. So sorry. Please share your thoughts on this golden piece, and don't forget to reach out to the original author. I have them linked in the description to express your thanks. They really deserve it. In addition, let me know if you have any recommendations. I am always looking to add to my hoard, and I do have one fanfic that I am planning to read after this one, but I'm always looking to expand that. And of course, thank you for listening to this Dragon's Hoard.